volume 16 now present. So it is back at the long going game of comparing the volume covers from Mashima's respective like big serialized works to each other and just kind of talking about them, what works for them, and what exactly is like my favorite part of whichever one I pick as my favorite out of the three. So as we've been doing, we'll start with Rave Master. It was the first series, so it makes sense to start with them. The cover is really good. I like the full use of the cover of this volume for the picture. It's not like look at the Eden Zero and the Fairy Tales, obviously having the frame around it and their own different kind of like colors and whatnot they use for it. But I like when Mashima does full frontal covers like this. You got it all the time in Rave Master, but Fairy Tale only has a couple, and Eden Zero doesn't have any. It'd be cool if he did that for like alternate covers, like maybe if there was like a special release with an alternate cover art you could get. But this one is super simple. You have Musica and Reina, and they're kind of just doing their thing. They're getting all posed up. They're getting in the fights. This, I believe, was the arc going into the. It was like going into part way of the whole stuff with like Doryu and everybody, but against the ogre dude, the Gold Claimer, as this power was. Outside of that, it's a super solid one visually. Like, it's again, it's simple. You've got music in a really cool pose. You got Reina behind him, and Plu for some reason is in it. I know he's the mascot, but it's like Plu doesn't really work too well with with this setup. You figured you'd maybe use Griff. I think Griff would work a little bit better, just to kind of like have almost an off one in the series, kind of other than Plu, because he's not the same mascot, but I feel like he would kind of work with grouped up with Musica on the cover instead. Maybe kind of like have like a funny thing of him ogling Reina. But the colors they use is really good. Reina's green. I think that light kind of almost mint green, like a couple shades down to mint green. And like the black, I think it looks really good with that orange background, as well as the slightly green and yellow tinted armor that Musica has over his metallic armor, his like 6 silver armor that he's wearing in this in this volume setup. Looks really good. Again, it's very regular. I think it's just supposed to show you, like, give you a little hint at what's going to be going on in that volume. Nothing crazy, nothing too spoiler, but it's just enough to get you a little hyped up. Now, the Fairy Tale one, it's the most vague, I think, out of like stuff that really goes on in the chapter, because at least with the stuff going on between Reina and Musica, you'd assume with Musica's weapon out that he is, he's in a fight. And outside of that, like, Reina with him, it's like, oh, are they teaming up? Like, we know that something's going between them in terms of whatever the events were for that volume. Like, say you were somebody that hadn't read it before and you're just going into it. Whereas, like, the Fairy Tale one, it has other characters, like, obviously the people that was going again, like, grouping up to fight against the Erasion Seis, the whole Light Alliance and whatnot between different guilds. Outside of Natsu, it just shows, like, members of the other guilds. It doesn't show the rest of the main cast. But I like how it's formatted, because, like, you had, like, the slight question of, like, when Natsu was, like, wasn't too sure if he had met Wendy or not before. Wendy's just looking really polite, really friendly. You have all the other characters kind of going in. I actually really like the pink background, and it's not just because it's a different color than regular. I really like the almost kind of like rose-ish or floral effect pattern that Mashima decided to do, instead of just making it like solid pink. It looks really cool. It actually reminds me, like, if anyone's ever looked at the Assassination Classroom volume covers, those ones are really cool. They go crazy with those ones. I don't know all of them, but I know there are some series that have like really neat extra, effort volume covers. Like, I think it's Dimension W. Theirs are glow in the dark. There's areas on it, and you just leave it out, so the areas that have a glow in the dark paint on it can absorb the sunlight, or just light in general, and then you turn out the lights and it'll glow, which is really cool. And Assassination Classroom has like all these different ones, but some like that are kind of glittery. Like, this is the volume cover that if they wanted to do something like that, they could have made this pink holographic, like some form of, like a Yu-Gi-Oh card, give it low. It's essentially like a secret rare foil to it. I don't know, it's just something about this. It just looks really cool. I do really like it. In terms of like where the characters are on it, I'd say it's my least favorite, because theirs is mostly just like showing, hey, look, characters and, you know, stuff's going on here. Nothing too much, but I really love the use of colors. I think the whole cast on there is really nicely complementing the color palette that Mashima decided to go for this. And the Eden Zero one, I do want to point out, because like I was talking about the colors of the other ones, I'm not a huge fan of this one's color. Granted, this isn't like the good HD one. This is just like, you know, whatever resolution this would be, but it's not one of, you know, whenever we get like a full like nice HD setup like we got with the Rave Master Fairy Tail ones. It's still fine enough that you could look at it, but I'm not as huge of a fan of the colors that they use. Like I like the layout. It's very standard layout, but I feel like Mashima has done it a good couple times already. I'd have to go back and look, but just kind of like the way that people are kind of like, I don't know, set up from it in terms of like their angle on this one. I might just be thinking of nothing, but the colors used, they aren't as vibrant enough. They don't as like they don't kind of like pop out or catch the eye enough. I think it's the red color, or like maroon or whatever that's supposed to be. They should have used maybe like a little bit closer to just like a little bit brighter red. Just use something a little bit, and then maybe had all these water tones to kind of like go with it. Or like he just straight made it blood, made it kind of like a blood red color. And I can't tell if that's what it's supposed to be, but it doesn't, like it looks a little too brownish red, like almost like a wood color that he's using. And it doesn't go nearly as well with the colors of the characters used on the volume cover, because I think that's obviously one of the big things you're going to want to take into consideration. Is like, how do the colors all work together in certain ways? And the color layout of the volume set, like I said, the first one, it looks really good with that like pink, and I don't really know if it's supposed to be a floral pattern or whatever behind them, but it looks really nice. It looks really good, and it makes all the color, the characters and their colors work really well with it. Whereas this one, I don't know as much. Like, it still looks good, but I think the colors just feel a little bit too calm. I don't really know how to describe it. In that regard of like how it just feels like it looks like if you saw this volume cover, you'd look and go, oh, you know, it looks cool and whatever, but it doesn't get you like a bit amped, and especially from the standpoint of somebody who is you know, who read this arc as it was coming out, or this volume as it was coming out, and you see this one, it's not nearly as exciting, but it's a good one. But I think the colors could have really amplified it more. I would say that I kind of wish that it wasn't that it wasn't Shura on the volume cover. I wish instead, actually, of like the whole cast, we got the oceans and maybe Nero. I think that would have been cooler to put on here, or like maybe just like Nero in front of all his planets or something. Maybe we get something cool with him, or maybe Mashima's like saving whatever volume cover he goes on. I don't know. I swear, like, Laguna just has also, like, a couple points deducted for me. Because, like, I don't dislike him, but I don't really care about him enough right now that I'd be happy about him being in the center of a volume cover. So I'm just like, I kind of wish it went to someone else. Because this was... Actually, I would have really liked if this went to Rebecca. Because this was like, around the area where she, like, learned how to really use her ether gear better. Unless, actually, I think it's the start of... Because I'm looking at Happy Bot with his turban. Like going over to Sandra and stuff and meeting up with them, and I might be a little misplaced on where it goes, but I feel like it could have been, I don't know, a little bit more crisp of a setup. I do like it. I think it looks fine, but it's not nearly as eye-catching and really nicely complemented to each other in the different shades and colors that Mashima used, like the Fairy Tail volume cover. And this is like one of the only ones I've seen where it's like it feels super. Like, I knew what exactly I was going to pick before I started, like, kind of going into this, because I really like this volume cover. It's one of those ones where I don't really like it at first, and I think it reminds me a lot of Rock City Boy, the 8th opening. I've heard from a lot of other people that, like, they weren't as much of a fan of it at first, but after a while it just kind of grew and you really liked it. That's how this volume cover, I think, was for me. Like, the first time I bet if I saw it again, I'd be like, I don't know, I don't really know entirely how I feel, but I really like it as I'm seeing it now. I think it, again, the usage of colors just made it more, like a attention catching for me, at least. But anyway, other than that though, comment below, tell which one is your favorite, and I really appreciate thumbs up the video for the like button, subscribe, and check out my other videos. But I appreciate it. Already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.